Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. I'm Pinky Webb. Today on the program, President Rodrigo Duterte approves the task force PhilHealth findings in filing charges against top PhilHealth officials. But does this mean Health Secretary Francisco Duque is off the hook? And following the warning of health experts on the possible surge of COVID-19 cases, the interagency task force is set to review the reduced physical distancing policy. And a senator is pushing for the blacklisting of Chinese firms involved in the West Philippine Sea reclamation. And also raising objections in the installation of Chinese-backed cell towers in military zones. Senate President Pro-Tempore Ralph Recto joins us live. It's been almost 2 months since an anti-fraud legal officer made allegations of rampant corruption involving 15 billion pesos worth within PhilHealth. This led to a series of investigations from both chambers of Congress and the creation of a task force to probe alleged corruption issues. Among the allegations were the procurement of allegedly overpriced IT equipment, questionable release of funds, and manipulation of the agency's financial status. Yesterday, the president received the findings of the task force after a month of investigation. Our Trisha Terada has the details. Trisha, what did the president say?
Well, thank you, President Rodrigo Duterte approved the recommendation of Task Force PhilHealth to file charges against officials involved in corruption issues at the State Insurance Agency. Among those who will be charged criminally and administratively are former PhilHealth President and Chief Executive Officer Ricardo Morales, Chief Operating Officer Arnel de Jesus, Senior Vice President Jovita Aragona, Acting Senior Manager for Information Technology and Management Department Calixto Gabuya Jr., Senior Vice President for Fund Management Sector Renato Limshaco Jr., Senior Vice President for Health Finance Policy Sector Israel Francis Vargas, and Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer Arnel de Jesus, among others. The senior officials who will be held liable for violation of the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act for malversation of public funds, illegal use of public funds and property, gross misconduct, and neglect of duty. Some officers will also be held liable for certain violations of the National Internal Revenue Code in connection with their failure to withhold taxes on funds released under the Interim Reimbursement Mechanism, or the controversial IRM.
The issue of PhilHealth and corruption was really an important issue to the Filipinos and to everybody. And everybody, again, is also placed in jeopardy by the actions of the officials. I'm sorry for them, but they would have to undergo trial. Although they can always prove their guilt beyond reasonable doubt. Wala namang the presumption of innocence still attaches. But the report of another agency says otherwise. So, ganun ho ang nangyari sa PhilHealth. Halos lahat sa board.
Well, as for the chairman, that's Health Secretary Francisco Duque, and the members of the board, the task force recommended that the president strongly warn or reprimand them of, quote, a grave consequence of their action or inaction to PhilHealth funds to the government, its coffers, and its beneficiaries. Back to you, Pinky.
Thanks a lot, Trisha Terada, for that report. We'll be taking a short break. Coming up, we'll speak to Senator Ralph Recto. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guest today, Senator Ralph Recto. Senator Recto, welcome to The Source, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Senator, so the president approved the recommendation made by the the DOJ rather task force on PhilHealth to file criminal and administrative charges against former President and CEO Ricardo Morales and others. What is your quick reaction on this, sir?
Well, frankly, I've not read the report yet, no, but I welcome the what came out in the news that the DOJ has recommended to file both administrative and criminal charges.
But to some people, they were possibly holding their breath, wondering if the DOJ report would actually include Secretary Duque, and it did not in terms of filing criminal and administrative charges. This is obviously contrary to the recommendation made by the Senate. What do you say to this?
Yeah, unfortunately, Pinky, it only came out yesterday, and I've not been able to read the report, no, coming from the DOJ. But more importantly, the Senate already has asked or expressed itself, not only with regard to the charges to be filed, but for the resignation of Secretary Duque.
The thing, though, is what happened really last night, Senator, because I was watching the president's address. He read, I think it's a 6-page, if I'm not mistaken, finding from the DOJ task force. And he was, I think, reading the last 2 pages. He was trying to read that verbatim, and that's also what we got. And I understand what you're saying, sir. You haven't really fully read this. But do you think that there could have been any possible effect of the president telling Secretary Duque maybe a week ago that he shouldn't resign? Now is not the right time, pending, sir, the investigation that will be given to the president a week later by the DOJ task force. Nagkaroon ho kaya to ng effect one way or another?
I wouldn't know, Pinky, no? But let me add one more item to the discussion, if you don't mind, no? To me, I think what is lacking in both the Senate and in the DOJ report, which, frankly, I've not read it yet, no? Although I only am commenting on newspaper accounts, no? Is the accountability of the members of the board itself. Okay? Remember, it is the board ang nagbabantay dapat sa management ng PhilHealth, not even the Senate. Okay? If the board did its job, then there should be no problem. And that is the reason why we put in the law that the Department of Finance, the Department of Budget and Management, the DOH secretary is the chairman of the board. I mentioned DBM, the DOLE, the DSWD, all the stakeholders in our healthcare system are included in the board. And then there should be professionals, so on and so forth. So bakit pinabayaan ng board ang PhilHealth? Considering that PhilHealth is one of the most important GFIs or GOCCs that we have. And remember, we just passed the Universal Healthcare Law. We increased premium contributions for the next 5 years. We passed taxes on sin products and unsweetened beverages. We also included parts of income of PAGCOR, PCSO to help fund universal healthcare coverage. No? But unfortunately, pinabayaan ng board lahat ito. All the work that we put in over the years, no? To ensure that we have a good healthcare system, which should have served us well now during a time of pandemic. Okay? Now, can you imagine this? In this situation today, in the middle of a pandemic, our people are witnessing, parang PhilHealth is imploding. Okay? We're not even sure how much money they have there at the moment, no? Although it came out in the testimony that, as I've always said, there is roughly 200 billion available, okay, with PhilHealth. Okay? So it should be able to pay for the
Right.
testing, be able to pay for people who get sick with the coronavirus, so on and so forth. No? So my problem now is I hope that the new head of PhilHealth is up to the task to ensure that it works effectively, efficiently, and economically, properly. So as I said, no, Pinky, no, none
And
of
I
the
guess
recommendations have included the accountability of the members of the board.
I understand what you're saying, Senator Recto, because even Senate President Soto was saying that, for example, let me just bring this up, Secretary Duque, who is chairman, of the board, he says that he's not a signing chairman. But you have the Senate President saying, hindi ka nga signing chairman, pero you are the head of the board, and if you use possible hindi ako pumirma or negligence, you could be even liable under a public rather Article
That's correct.
217 of the revised penal code, which actually talks about abandonment or possible negligence.
That is correct. That is correct. So at the very least, that should have been included in the DOJ report.
Yeah. What were you expecting? What is the least, Sir Siguro? I know, again, this is just all preliminary and initial. What was the least that you expected when it came to, let's say, Secretary Duque and members of the board?
I, well, I think, well, for more investigation should be done by the appropriate government agency. In this case, it should be the ombudsman. Okay. So remember, the DOJ is just a recommendatory body as well to the president, because it is the
True.
ombudsman who will be making the final investigation. And I trust that the ombudsman will do its job
Are
properly.
you? We'll continue our conversation with Senator Ralph Recto. We have so much to talk about: the installation of cell towers and military camps, and of course, his resolution on the blacklisting of firms involved in the reclamation in the West Philippine Sea. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guest today is Senator Ralph Recto. Senator, the U.S. blacklisted companies involved in the reclamation in the West Philippine Sea. You filed a resolution on this as well. And let me read this part, Senator, expressing the sense of the Senate to prohibit from receiving awards for government contracts or conducting business in the Philippines foreign entities who have engaged in or abetted activities that infringe on the sovereignty of the country over the West Philippine Sea and other areas within its territorial jurisdiction. My question here, Senator, is can you give us an update on this resolution of yours?
If I'm not mistaken, there will be a hearing on Friday. I saw it in my schedule, so we'll probably have a hearing on this resolution on Friday. But Pinky, let me also inform the people watching your program that I also filed another resolution, no, urging the executive department to refrain from increasing the country's debt exposure to China, so on and so forth. No? So aside from that, I think that we should not be incurring more debts from China as well. In next year's budget, we will be collecting roughly 2.9 trillion pesos, but we will be borrowing 3 trillion pesos, and maybe for the next 2 or 3 years. Now, having said that, I don't think we should be borrowing more from China, considering everything that's
Let's
happening in the
talk
West.
that one at a time. Yeah, which we need to talk about, Senator. So there is a hearing possibly on Friday regarding this. But at the moment, what you have is this. Let me just backtrack a bit. The U.S. blacklisted the companies. I was able to interview Secretary Locsin, and he said he would strongly recommend the blacklisting of companies involved in the reclamation. And then the president thereafter said, hindi, magpapatuloy itong mga proyektong ito because we're a sovereign country. We have an independent foreign policy. So the question now is, while we speak and while you have this resolution, it doesn't seem like the government is going to take back any contract with any foreign company that is involved in the reclamation of the West Philippine Sea. What happens, sir? How important is it that there's a decision on this as soon as possible?
I'll put it this way. One is, this is expressing only the sense of the Senate. I think our people are divided here, Pinky, no? So we're expressing the other side of the coin, okay? And I think many people find it reasonable that we should not be giving awards to companies who have reclaimed part of the West Philippine Sea for China for putting up military bases, so to speak, no, in the West Philippine Sea, no. It creates too much tension in the region, no. So the Senate is also another institution that can speak its mind and make recommendations to the president.
Right.
For sure that on Friday we will have Secretary Locsin there if he is invited. I'm sure he will have to be invited, no, and to listen to other experts also. So this is what we're trying to express here in this resolution. That not everyone in government is amenable. Not everyone in government is saying that this is an independent foreign policy. It is a pivot to China. What independent foreign policy are we talking about?
You don't believe in the independent foreign policy that the president espouses.
Well, do you?
I'll have to ask you that as a senator, sir.
Well, I don't. Like I said, it's a pivot to China. Do
Okay.
you believe it's an independent foreign policy?
So, given that,
Why
there are
are we?
two things that need to be discussed, and there's a third. Senator, please go
Yes.
ahead.
No, I was just saying, why should we reward contractors who develop or who put up this, who reclaim part of West Philippine Sea? We will allow them now to what? Reclaim Manila Bay? We will allow them now to put up an airport facility in Manila Bay? Not to mention, you already have the Chinese who own a certain percentage of our transmission corporation, and now we're allowing them to
Mm-hmm,
enter
mm-hmm.
into telecom. I'm fine with 40%, but there's another bill in the Senate which will allow them to own 100%. Is that our national interest? I don't think so.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. When we talk about the sense of the Senate, Senator, we understand, of course, what it means, but the kind of value this will have, please explain that to us, because when you have um, a number of senators saying on another topic, Secretary Duque should resign, the president also not listening to that, and other resolutions made giving the sense of the Senate. Ano ho kaya do you think this will have some sort of impact on the kind of decision that government will do or
Yeah.
government is
Now,
doing?
whether there's an impact, whether there is an impact on the executive today is, hopefully there is an impact. But
Mm-mm.
assuming there is none, okay, which I think the executive should listen to, because one, the Senate, all of us are elected at large. It was created that way. 24 senators elected nationwide. There are only 26 people in the country elected nationwide: the president, the vice president, and the Senate. This differentiates us from the Senate in the US, which is elected by state. Okay, so our forefathers thought it best to have the Senate elected at large, which is a counterbalance also to
Mm-hmm.
the executive. Okay, now having said that, that is very important, no? So we are speaking for the people as well. So when the Senate speaks and passes a resolution, it is speaking for 108 million Filipinos too, because we're elected at large. Okay, it is the counterbalance to the executive, as I said earlier, no? So
Mm-hmm.
people would want to hear as well what the position of the Senate is. And that's why I filed the
Mm-hmm.
resolution.
Right, right. Is
Hopefully we
there
can
any
get a
other
good
way you
majority.
think, apart from this?
Yes. And hopefully
Yeah,
we
I
can get a
actually
good
wanted to go
majority.
there, sir. Two things on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. What number are you looking at in terms of supporting this sense of the Senate on the blacklisting of foreign companies involved in the reclamation in the West Philippine Sea?
Well, the more the merrier. Hopefully, two-thirds of the Senate. The bigger the number, the greater the political impact. Maybe if we get
Mm-hmm.
two-thirds, maybe the
Mm-hmm.
president will listen.
Okay. And then I wanted to go very quickly, sir, to what you said a while ago, the other resolution you filed that we shouldn't basically, let's not borrow more from China because of the debt exposure. Can you run this by us just also very quickly? Because we also need to talk about your reaction on DITO telecommunity, sir.
Remember, I am not against the Chinese. I have many Chinese friends. Okay, it's just unfortunate that they have
Okay.
taken the position of creating instability in the region by putting up all these facilities in the West Philippine Sea and very close to the Philippines. Okay, and we are
Mm-hmm.
potentially, we may lose our exclusive economic zone. Many people do not realize, but our exclusive economic zone is just as big, if not a little bigger than the entire country. So our land mass is roughly about 30 million hectares. Our exclusive economic zone is a
Mhm.
little more than 30 million hectares in the West Philippine Sea. No? It's a vital sea lane, $6 trillion of trade pass every year. There's a lot of mineral resources there. So I think we should protect this for future generations as well. Now, with regard to the other resolution, as I said earlier, because of the pandemic, the Philippines, our revenues have gone down. We will be borrowing more. And to finance the many build projects that we will be undertaking, hopefully, we should not be borrowing this bilaterally from China. China already has
Mm-mm.
a track record in lending out money to many countries. No? And we've seen what has happened to many countries. No? There is what you call a debt trap as well. Okay, so all of those I put in the
Right.
resolution. No? Yeah, so it's good that the
Mm-mm.
Senate hears this. It will help educate all of us,
Right.
and the Senate should take a stand on these issues.
Okay. We will await those, two resolutions you filed, Senator. I need to jump to the cell towers that were permitted by the Defense Secretary to build cell sites inside military camps, which they are saying, of course, Globe and Smart have installed their own cell sites there as well. I know you expressed opposition on this even last year. Senator Recto, 2019, you already had reservations about this. And then now that um, there is a permit to do this. My question is this, sir, are you more inclined to believe that this could be used to spy on our military camps as alleged by some or assumed by some? Sabi nga po ni Senior Associate Justice, retired Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpo, it's like putting a listening device inside the conference room doon po sa military camps. Or do you think these allegations are unfounded or an exaggeration?
I'll put it this way, simple lang, Pinky. I said earlier the Philippines is 30 million hectares. Our military camps will not even be bigger than 1/10 of 1% of the total land mass. Okay? So bakit pinipilit sa loob ng military camp? Okay? Why not allow them na lang? Ako, payag ako if they put up in, let's say, 50,000 schools that we have nationwide. We have
Yeah.
50,000 schools nationwide. DepEd, SUCs, so on and so on. Tapos magbayad sila at yung bayad nila pwede free internet sa mga estudyante natin. Bakit kailangan sa military camp?
Mm-hmm.
Ang dami naman pwedeng paglagyan. Let's be practical about it. Di ba? Mm. Does the military, do they need the resources
And
for
what
this?
can the
You
Senate?
know, yes. Every year we allot a
Yeah.
lot of billions and billions of pesos to the military. I don't think they need the resources. I don't think it's about the payment. So why the military camp? Why not elsewhere? Ang laki-laki naman ng Pilipinas sa pwedeng paglagyan. Like I said, by recommendation, if at all,
Yeah.
why not sa mga eskwelahan natin, DepEd and SUCs?
What I know you said that, sir. In fact, I read that, and parang the benefits of that would be greater if it was somewhere near colleges, universities, and schools, and it will help the students as well, especially now with this blended learning. But what can the Senate do about this now that it's been signed? The permit, rather, has been signed by the Defense Secretary.
Well, we can talk. Well, we were able to stop it last year. Okay? It resurrected this year. We now have a budget hearing. Let's see how it
Right.
goes.
Could you also possibly have maybe this? I know I believe it's Senator Risa Ontiveros who filed a resolution regarding this as well to look into this construction of cell sites inside military camps. Is this something you would support?
Definitely, definitely. Uh, and remember, Pinky,
Okay.
ulitin ko
All
lang, I
right.
mentioned earlier also, there is another bill in the House and in the Senate. I think the House has passed it. Amendment to the Public Service Act,
Mm-mm.
which will allow 100% ownership in telecommunication
Yeah.
companies. Okay? So today, dito has 40%, uh, uh, 40% owned by China,
Chinese owned.
by the state, by the government. Okay, we allowed a Chinese firm
Opo.
owned by the state to own 40% of Dito Telecom. Okay, if we pass the Public Service Act as written, in effect, they could buy 100% of Dito. Not only of Dito, but maybe even of PLDT or Globe, because they will now be allowed to own 100%. Is that wise for us to do that and allow them in our military camps as well? Why take the risk?
It's almost opo, white. And in fact, you did say even earlier, better safe than sorry. So, kailangan ho bantayan din tong amendment sa PSA, sir.
Correct. Last year ko pa binabantayan, last Congress pa.
Okay, let's
Marami akong
see what
binabantayan dun.
happens there as well. Okay. Well, Senator, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras. Thank you to Senator
Thank
Ralph
you for having
Recto.
me. Thank you for having me, Pinky.
And our pleasure, and thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.